overthinking.
Futurama. Did I say it right?
Wait a minute, that's not me. That's Jessie from the YouTube channel Chinese with Jessie. We'll be hearing more from her later in the video, and diving claws first into A Fishful of Dollars momentarily. But first, I have to do the unthinkable. I have to make
a correction.
I did a dumb at the beginning of my video on Fear of a Bot Planet. And of course, my beautiful, loyal, good-smelling viewers immediately pointed it out in the comments, like 10 minutes after the video went live. And then I was all like,
If anyone needs me, I'll be in the Angry Dome.
I said that the conveniently placed windshield wiper button wasn't there in the wide shot of the same scene, which was incorrect. And the stupid thing is, I did notice all these lines and junk down here, but like a dolt, I didn't think to check what they actually were. Playing with some filters and yada yadas in Photoshop shows that indeed the button is there. As punishment for this egregious oversight, I'm going to watch the entire Star Wars sequel trilogy and then tweet something nice about Rian Johnson. This episode's title, A Fishful of Dollars, comes from the 1964 spaghetti western A Fistful of Dollars, the first in the iconic Man with No Name, not intended to be a trilogy but somehow became one, series of movies, starring Clint Eastwood. This big ol' full moon tells us something about when this episode is set. The final scene of Love's Labor's Lost in Space, the fourth episode of Season 1, takes place on April 13th, 3000. Although A Fishful of Dollars aired only 2 weeks later, it takes place at least a month later, since on April 13th of 3000, the full moon will have just passed, and the next will be around May 10th. Those of you watching approximately 976 years after this goes live, please comment below, and let me know if these moon prediction calendars I'm looking at got it right.
Give it a rest, you two!
For Fry's room to have this large window and share a wall with the apartment of these springling robots seems downright impossible. And that's accounting for the fact that whatever lies beyond this door off of the front room is an ever-shifting and changing parabox of mystery. The front room itself stays remarkably consistent throughout the series, but in The Beast with a Billion Backs, we see Fry's bedroom right through the door. While in How Hermes Requisitioned His Groove Back, there's an L-shaped hallway leading to Fry's room and several others. Regardless of where the bedroom is located, we know that its window must face the same direction as the front room's window, since only one side of the apartment faces the outside of the building. The other three sides border two neighboring apartments and a corridor that lies on the side opposite the windows. We can also be certain this window is real and not some type of screen or holographic projection. In the Season 4 episode Love and Rocket, we see Fry open it to talk to the Planet Express ship, who is hovering on the other side. Somehow, if you're in Fry's room facing the window, the Spring Robot's apartment is immediately through the wall to the left, while at the same time, if you're in the front room facing the window, Fry's bedroom is somehow to the right. This is a paradox, unless rather than being on this side of the front room, Fry's room is on the other side, which would defy everything we're shown in the series about how the apartment is laid out, A, and B, how do you get to it? We don't see any evidence of a door in this wall, and if there's some kind of hallway that leads from here to the other side, it must go above or below. And if we're going to start going down that road, we might as well assume that Fry teleports to his room, because that would make just as much sense in the context of this show.
Sorry!
What possible reason could there be for building robots like this? Do they have control over how they bend? Because it looks like they're just subject to the whims of physics. And if you really need a robot that can limbo like Hermes on a Tuesday to, I don't know, fit in tight spaces, change your oil or something, why not just build a smaller robot? Does this look like a fly to anyone? I'm only asking because a lot of commenters thought this looked like a fly, and, well, I just don't see it.
Mr. Fry, are those your underpants?
After listening to DVD commentaries for several episodes written by Ken Keeler, I don't ever not notice when they say underpants rather than underwear. Writer and executive producer Keeler claims that the word underpants is 20% funnier, and I'm not going to argue with a PhD mathematician who wrote many of the best science, math, and philosophy-centric episodes of Futurama, including Godfellas, Meanwhile, and The Prisoner of Benda. Interestingly, Keeler did not write A Fishful of Dollars, but I'll be Zoidberged if we're not seeing his influence here. The chalk markings on this blackboard change completely during the cutaway. Now, I suppose this could be a digital screen. In fact, that's likely. But if so, why does it have chalk and a chalkboard eraser?
Lightspeed fits today's active lifestyle, whether you're on the job or having fun.
I decided to poll all of you to see what you thought Fry was demonstrating with this chart here. Just another example of why it's good to take an extra minute to think through your choices, but I'm a man of my word, so we're gonna do this. But first, that is a lot of skin. This is gonna be very distracting. Not to mention, YouTube's probably gonna flag it. Let me just fire up that AI program that lets you put clothes on people, a.k.a. Photoshop. There we go. Much better. And just so I can't be accused of sexism, that's not half bad. If this online content thing doesn't work out, perhaps I have a future career in fashion designment. Whatever. What have you got for us, viewers of Scenometry?
As this graph explains, Lightspeed brand briefs may result in full body shrinkage over long periods of time.
Fry does look pretty small in this shot. His feet don't even touch the ground. Reminds me of those perspective tricks they used in The Lord of the Rings to make the hobbits appear smaller than everyone else. Or maybe she's just part Amazonian.
The price of a cheese pizza and a large soda has risen beyond inflation.
So you're saying inflation will eventually slow? That's a relief.
As this study shows, it's completely normal to cry that long afterwards.
Right, but how long is she supposed to laugh for?
This graph clearly shows why the underwear should be green.
I don't know why AI Fry decided it needed to shout that, but you can't argue with the logic. It's all right there in the chart.
In the late 90s, only one object per room was allowed to have a shadow.
Yeah, what about that? The easel is projecting a shadow like it's under a spotlight, but nothing else is. The bed looks like it has a slight shadow underneath. And then there's whatever this is, but this isn't how light works. Those entries were in no particular order, but there is one undisputed winner of this caption contest. Unfortunately, I don't know who it is because I cannot find the post. I don't know if the poster deleted it, or if Twitter or YouTube is censoring it for some reason. I have no idea why they would. The winning caption was simply the word
briefing.
Simple, concise, hilarious. If that was you, congrats, you win the internet for today. Alright, on to your regularly scheduled pedantry.
I'll never get back to sleep.
I know I've seen this joke somewhere before.
Now go back to bed. It's 4 a.m.
Oh, 4 a.m. No, I'll never get back to...
Wow, so not only did he rip off the visual style, now he's stealing jokes? If Matt Groening isn't careful, he's gonna get sued by that guy that created The Simpsons.
Gorilla for sale.
Cut it out, Homer. I'm trying to sleep. This is the last time I'm letting you sleep over.
Nobody would have noticed if this wrecked car from iRoommate hadn't still been here, which, as usual, makes the fact that it is that much more awesome. But upon noticing that it was there, I had to go check if it was in the exterior shots from Love Slavers Lost in Space and Fear of a Bot Planet, and it doesn't appear to be. On the plus side, I have a new exterior detail to obsess over, since the thing from the first couple episodes hasn't made a reappearance that I've noticed. Gotta qualify that so I don't have to do another correction.
They broadcast commercials into people's dreams?
This looks like the employee lounge we all know and love. It's got the same stuff in it and the same paint colors and floor design, but it's been warped beyond recognition. And it's not a case of an original design that got tweaked later. A series of shots in iRoommate confirm that the original layout is the same as what we see in later seasons. In fact, we see that layout later in this same episode. Normally, the table is much smaller, has fewer chairs, and sits against this wall under the bulletin board. The vending machine usually sits about here, very close to the water cooler, without this huge gap that grows larger and larger as the scene progresses. In fact, the whole room seems to be growing around them. Look how far away the bulletin board is now. In the final shot of this scene, the room stretching seems to have reset to normal, but the room still has this strange alternate layout, and since all the characters are doing is sitting around the table and talking, I have to wonder why the creators changed this room instead of just having the scene take place at the conference table.
The ad gets into your brain just like this liquid gets into this egg.
You mean through the fourth dimension? Because you did not just poke a syringe needle through an eggshell without breaking it. Did you?
Didn't you have ads in the 20th century?
Not in our dreams, only on TV and radio. And in magazines. In movies. Buses, ball games, milk cartons and t-shirts and bananas and written on the sky.
And on YouTube. Don't forget YouTube. Oh, you thought there was going to be an ad break there, didn't you? No, I already did that joke in my video on Fear of a Bot Planet. I wouldn't do the same joke twice in a row. What kind of shill do you think I am? The kind that plugs his previous videos to get views?
Quit squawking, Fleshwad. Nobody's forcing you to buy anything.
Do robots dream of electric briefs? I don't think Zoidberg said a single thing in this scene. Nope. And for some reason, he's the only one with a swivel chair, which he did not have at the start of the scene. Hey, Charlie, nice panoramic drawing of the New York skyline, but it's not gonna fit. The show's in 4:3 aspect ratio. Well, don't cut them off. I worked hard on those buildings. Just make the bottom 3/5 of the screen water. I respect this couple. It's like, you want to cast off cultural conformity and be a nudist, but you still respect others enough to know that nobody should have to see that. Alien over Lord & Taylor is a reference to the department store Lord & Taylor, which closed its physical doors and became an online-only store in 2021, after nearly 200 years in business.
Care to sample the latest fragrance from Calvin Klein?
Is Calvin Clone the clone of Calvin Klein, or Clever Claptrap conceived to conjure a clone of the Calvin Klein Corporation? Corporation. In my video on episode 2, the series has landed, I mentioned that even fluent speakers have trouble understanding what the heck Amy is saying when she rants in Chinese. She seems to speak a mix of Mandarin and Cantonese and maybe some other dialect from a Chinese equivalent of Newfoundland that nobody else in the country understands. I don't know. But rather than try to do another horribly awful pseudo-translation on my own, I got in touch with someone who knows what they're talking about, because that's what you do when you're a lazy YouTuber who doesn't want to learn an entire language for the sake of a joke. I know. Comments are open for you to ridicule my work ethic, but let's listen to this.
It's Jessie here. Today we're gonna watch a few clips from Futurama. Did I say it right? It seems that there's a character named Amy Wong in this show who speaks Chinese. Wong is the Cantonese pronunciation of this surname. In Mandarin, it's Wang.
There is a character with that name too, actually.
Pizza delivery for defrosted
Wang. It looks like The Simpsons.
So what did I tell you? I'm not the only one that sees it.
What?
We're doomed.
我只听懂了哎呀, which was the right thing to say when frustrated, but was that Cantonese or Mandarin? 哎呀，屌你好打死你. Oh, wait. It kind of sounds like a combination of Cantonese and Mandarin. 屌你 means F you in Cantonese. It seems that it started with the Cantonese swearing, but ended in Mandarin, 打死你, which means beat you to death. Oh, there's a 好 in the middle. Well, 好 could mean so that in spoken Chinese. So basically, Amy said, F you so that I could beat you to death. Doesn't make sense, but this is the norm in it. Nothing makes sense.
Care to sample the latest fragrance from Calvin Klein?
No thanks.
Okay, 打死你, then something. 1,000 years in the future, English remains the same. Chinese, however, turns into a mystery.
Hey, that's my job.
Maybe it's a combination of Cantonese, Mandarin, and some other dialects, because a lot of Chinese dialects, especially in the South, are not mutually intelligible.
How does your country function?
The Jigs dinner won't even make it past the gauntlet, eh, boy?
What do you mean by that?
Lord Dino, man, who you belong to?
Okay, I take it back. Well, I've got two takeaways from that. One is that my own translation was more correct than I expected. Of course, in this case, even the slightest bit correct would be more correct than I expected. I am sure Jessie will give me a failing grade. So in my head, she's saying, oops, I'd better beat you to death.
F in Cantonese.
And number two is, nobody really knows what Amy's trying to say when she rants in Chinese, except maybe Amy Wong actress Lauren Tom, but maybe not even her. Whatever the case, thank you so much to Jessie for letting me use this clip. Please check out her channel, Chinese with Jessie. The link to the full video where she reacts to many more clips of Amy speaking Chinese in Futurama is below. She's got similar videos for other shows as well, and a lot of other hilarious videos about the Chinese language. Check her out. Okay, moving on now. That's the teacher from Fry's dream. See, I assumed the ads were broadcast in some kind of ambiguous form that becomes integrated into whatever you're already dreaming about, kind of like how real-world sounds become part of your dreams while you're still asleep. But this makes me think they actually stage the dreams like a play and hire actors and stuff. Creepy.
What a lovely face. We just need to draw attention away from the eye area.
You're one to talk, lady. Is this sign telling us that the bikini babes are actually ugly? Good thing they're invisible. Want some proof that Futurama really does take place in a simulation? Zoop! Here it is zoomed in if you missed it. The 4 cans that Bender puts under his sweater become far more than 4 suspicious lumps as he walks away.
$30, please. $30? I can't afford that.
While Fry is fretting about the cost of the light speeds, the cashier switches from being voiced by Billy West
I'm afraid I can't let you open the package. $30, please.
to being voiced by Dave Herman,
Visa hasn't existed for 500 years.
another of Futurama's spectacularly talented voice actors. And yes, that's a picture of his character from Office Space, which I totally picked because it's era appropriate, having come out just a couple months before this episode, and not because it's impossible to find good free pictures of Dave Herman. We'll hear him later as the voice of Mom's son, Larry, and he also provides the voices of Scruffy, Roberto, Number 9 Guy, and Leela's dad, among others. If you listen to DVD commentaries, he's often praised by other actors and Futurama staff for his professional and hilarious work.
Visa hasn't existed for 500 years.
And yet, I bet they're still sending my mother that monthly statement telling her she has a 12-cent credit on her account.
American Express?
600 years.
Why would this random store clerk know about credit cards that haven't existed for centuries? This is like asking a modern-day cashier if they take whatever method of recording credit was common in the 1400s, and them knowing exactly what you were talking about. Which probably means they're some type of history buff, which this guy is clearly not, or he wouldn't so readily brush off an opportunity to see a real Visa or Amex card.
Mom's oil is made with 10% more love than the next leading brand.
So, still 0? Also, what's up with Walt's hair here? It's the same color as Larry's in this picture.
Mom, Love, and Screen Door are registered trademarks of MomCorp.
Well, there goes my idea for a sitcom about a lonely suburban mom who falls in love with a talking screen door. The heck is this one looking at? I'm sure there's a lot of thieves up there on the ceiling.
There's obviously been some sort of a mistake here.
Yeah, this sign says 2% discount. I'm so happy I just saved 83 cents on that discontinued off-brand coat that someone clearly returned to the store, and I left half a pack of gum in the pocket.
I'm sure there's...
With public diarrhea face like this, Bender should be the spokesrobot for Pepto-Bismol. Get it? Like binary? Or maybe Botsmo-Bismot or Robomodium. Whatever's funnier, take your pick.
I'm sure there's a very reasonable...
I think the explanation is that this sweater leads to a storage dimension, like a bag of holding in D&D or something. I'll just give a minute for you D&D people to write your actually down in the comments. But yeah, I don't think that would even be a lie. I mean, look at all this stuff. It's like clearing out your hoarder aunt's attic with a portal gun or some other relatable analogy. As I've annoyingly pointed out at least this many times, the word ask is pronounced axe in the year 3000. Nobody says it in this episode, but we do see it written on this sign. However, I am not going to count it. It could be a case of the word retaining its traditional spelling despite the change in pronunciation. That happens all the time. But more importantly, this is a mispronunciation counter, not a misspelling counter, and the premise of my whole Overthinking series is already so tenuous it would be downright dangerous to start blurring the lines now.
Do we have enough money to pay Bender's fine?
I realize Amy doesn't necessarily have unfettered access to her parents' money, and also we need Fry to check his bank balance so that we can set the plot in motion here, but Amy's a student and we're regularly shown that she wants for nothing. If she really doesn't have the cash on hand, just call Mr. and Mrs. Wong and tell them the truth, that you need the money for technology access fees.
$79.50. Crud. We're 50 cents short.
He's getting fined $80 for trying to steal all that stuff? Even accounting for the conversion to American dollars, my first speeding ticket was more than that. And the value of a Futurama dollar is at least in the same ballpark as a modern-day American dollar. $30 underwear notwithstanding, you could buy a cup of coffee for $3, and $1 million is considered a lot of money.
We don't seem to have your retina scan, your fingerprint, or your colonic map on file.
Never before have I paused this episode to think about what a colonic map is. Life was better that way.
What about my ATM card?
We haven't used this in a century or 10, let me just blow this thin layer of dust off. Of course, the fact that Fry's card works proves this really is the same bank, not a recreation or a different bank with the same name, so how did it survive what looks like a complete destruction of society while Fry was frozen? Yes, we're back here yet again. As this medieval-looking culture rose from the ashes, was there still a Big Apple bank dealing in whatever payment methods were common in the 1400s? I should really learn about 15th century financial systems. I can't believe it's come up twice in this video. This also means the dollars in Futurama's world aren't just analogous to 1999 US dollars. They are 1999 US dollars, or rather, year 3000 dollars that are a continuation of US currency from 1,000 years prior. The creators considered inventing a different kind of currency for the future, including things like quatloos, bucks, spelled B-U-X, and even joules, which would have been a unit of energy. All of this revealed by David X. Cohen in the DVD commentary for this episode. I'm not sure why they ultimately stuck with dollars, although it does work considering it's an American show set in America intended to satirize America. But from an in-universe perspective, it's very interesting that Earth would use dollars as the currency for its one-world government, which operates suspiciously like the modern American government. I'm sure it's all just coincidence.
Do you still remember your PIN number?
Sure. It's the price of a cheese pizza and a large soda back where I used to work.
Fry hits the 1 and the 0, the first two digits of his PIN, later revealed to be 1077. This number reappears in the first episode of Season 11, The Impossible Stream, as the activation code for Fry's Hulu account, which is weird since it clearly wants an 8-digit code. No! Stop! Self-hand slap. This is not the episode we're overthinking right now.
You had a balance of 93 cents, and at an average of 2.25% interest over 1,000 years, that comes to $4.3 billion.
Yes, I checked the math. 93 cents at 2.25% interest will grow to about $4.284 billion if compounded annually for 1,000 years. Man, it's a darn good thing he went with that no monthly fees account, am I right? Is that Scruffy? Yep, that's Scruffy, in his humble beginnings as a lowly side character with no voice and many different jobs. Weirdly enough, we know he must already work for Planet Express, since he was named Employee of the Year 5 years before this in $29.95. At which point he has already gone gray. That brown mustache dye's not fooling anyone, Scruff. Just stick to them $300 haircuts. We've got The Scream by Edward Munch, Sunflowers by Van Gogh, The Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, and The Blue Boy by Thomas Gainsborough. The Mona Lisa is indeed the smallest of these, but the dimensions are all wrong. Proportioned correctly, they should look like this. The estimated value of the Mona Lisa is about $1 billion. Did Fry just hand this guy a stack of $100 million bills? Can someone explain what's going on with this catapult? The payload arm seems to be held down by this rope, which I think is attached to the base on this end. You'd think pulling the lever would cause this end to release, but it's actually this end that pops off, making me question reality, physics, and all that is good and holy in the world.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
The New York stereotype bot's eyes glow red when there's an error and blue when it's talking normally, except right here.
What are you talking about?
Where they don't glow at all.
Anchovies. Those little headless fish.
Does not compute.
Wow, it's really easy to defeat a robot, apparently. Just say something they've never heard of before. It's like mentioning physics to a flat earther. Only explodier.
Sorry, Fry, but the anchovy has been extinct since the 2200s. Fished to death. Just about the time your people arrived on Earth, wasn't it, Zoidberg?
I'm not on trial here.
I'll forgive the improbability of the professor conveniently knowing this random fact because, well, he's the professor, for one, and two, the extinction of the anchovy is connected to the arrival of Zoidberg's people on Earth, an event that is apparently seared onto the collective memory of humanity, which is not at all hard to believe, considering smell is the sense most closely connected to memory. It's harder for me to forgive the professor saying fish to death rather than fish to extinction. Precision, Professor, precision.
My people ate them all. We kept saying one more can't hurt, and then they were gone. We're sorry.
I find it hard to believe they stopped at anchovies. I just couldn't come up with a joke about asbestos. even though I tried as best as I could. Okay, I'm sorry. Self-hand slap. Some things should not be joked about. My own grandfather worked around this stuff for all his life, and when he finally passed away peacefully in his bed at the age of 97, it took 3 full days to cremate him. It was a nightmare. What you doing, Amy? This is funny and all, but we've seen devices in the year 3000 that still use this style of handset. I made a whole thing of it in my video on Love's Laborers Lost in Space. I don't know what Fry is carrying here, but it can't be important, since it's gone after the next cut.
I know you spent a lot of money on this place, Fry, but it's awfully primitive.
If there was ever a man who had a type, it was 20th century artist Patrick Nagel, whose works exploded in popularity in the 1980s. He even designed the cover for Duran Duran's 1982 album Rio.
Smell like I sound, I'm lost and I'm found, and I'm hungry like the wolf.
Get a load of this pathetic 20th century TV. These things had a lousy low-definition picture.
On a TV like this, I bet you couldn't even make out my obscene tattoo.
For years, we've all wondered about Amy's blurry, supposedly obscene tattoo. Now we need wonder no longer. With the power of AI, I have de-blurred the image to bring it to you with precise clarity. Oh. Oh no. Oh, what is that? It looks like a fashion magazine went through a meat grinder and was made into a pair of high heels that are trying to make baby high heels. Oh, this is just the latest in a long string of reasons why AI was a mistake.
Who was this Ted Danson? And why would you pay $10,000 for his skeleton?
What happened to Ted Danson that he died like a pleb instead of living on as a head in a jar? Let's see. Cheers, environmentalism, an affair? That's not gonna get you into the good place. With Whoopi Goldberg, $30 million divorce settlement? Yeah, I'd be calling it in after that too.
So he's going a little wacko with his money. That's okay.
You're just saying that because he bought you that antique robot toy.
It is cute.
Funny, but definitely a missed opportunity for Bender to shout, his block's been knocked off, and for Leela to point out he can just push it back on again. Nobody watching this is gonna get that. Okay, here's a clip to make it make sense.
They're slugging it out in the middle of the ring! And Blue Farmer's block is knocked off!
A right to the jaw!
My block is knocked off!
Oh, my block is knocked off!
But you can press it right back on. It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Now our final item. Angry Norwegian brand anchovies circa 1997.
Anchovies?
Well, there's a coincidence of writer's room proportions.
Going once, twice.
75,000.
It's Mom.
And just in the nick of time. She wasn't there when they started bidding on the anchovies. Here's the kind of thing you only notice while watching these scenes over and over in the span of a few minutes. They use the exact same crowd reaction murmur twice.
50,000! 100,000!
I amplified the reaction sound so you could hear them clearly, and you may have noticed that the second one was just slightly sped up.
$1 jillion.
Sir, that's not a number.
Don't do my job for me, Mr. Auctioneer.
That's not a number.
Are you telling me the audience is surprised that a jillion isn't a number? 1,000 years on and they still haven't fixed the education system?
50 million.
Well, boys, your old mother knows when she's been beat.
Yes, 50 million's a lot, but we're talking about an item that could put her out of business. I highly doubt that
the richest, most powerful person in the world
can't outbid Fry when the stakes are that high.
Now for some good old 20th century TV.
These still work? I guess Strong Bad was right.
What could ever replace the durability of magnetic tape? Duct tape, maybe.
Do you remember a time when women couldn't vote and certain folk weren't allowed on golf courses? Petridge Farm remembers.
Although the TV voice says Petridge Farm, probably to avoid copyright or trademark issues, this parodies a famous advertising campaign of Pepperidge Farms, an American baked goods company now owned by Campbell's Soup of all things. Remember when you'd tape things off TV, watch them years later, and reminisce about all the old commercials? Scenometry remembers. Wait, now there's static on the TV? Was that whole tape just a Petridge Farm commercial?
You haven't been to work in 3 days. What have you been doing?
The dude's an overnight billionaire and you're the slightest bit surprised he hasn't come to work at his crummy delivery job? Even more confusing, the dude's an overnight billionaire and he still hasn't sprung for those light speeds.
You can't just sit here in the dark listening to classical music.
I could if you hadn't turned on the lights and shut off the stereo.
Whoa, Mr. Pedantic.
Are you gonna come to the squid fights with us, or sit here wallowing in your prehistoric junk?
I finally found what I need to be happy, and it's not friends, it's things.
So he's not going to the squid fights? Can I have his ticket? I hear the hors d'oeuvres are top-notch.
Fry, please. My ponytail's caught in the door.
No, it isn't.
I don't need them. Not when I have my antique videos, my bucket of fossilized KFC.
Is there another kind of KFC? I mean, no matter how fresh it is, I always feel like I've eaten rocks.
Holy crap, that bastard's itchy.
Mom is a fantastic antagonist, the personification of cold, corporate greed wrapped in the facade of a lovable grandmother with old-fashioned values. Not to mention, she's a perfect example of one of the core philosophies behind Futurama's world. Regardless of scientific progress and technological advancement, human nature is human nature, and some humans are, or choose to be, evil. It was true thousands of years ago, it's true now, and it'll be true thousands of years in the future.
Mercy me, what a day.
What's wrong, Mommy?
It's those damned anchovies.
The timeline is a bit confusing here. Mom saying what a day and then launching into a tirade about the anchovies suggests that this is still the day of the auction. And yet after the auction, Leela asks Fry what he's been doing for 3 days, and he says he's been sitting in his apartment. It's pretty weird for them to have this conversation if they saw each other at the auction earlier that same day. But it's equally weird for Mom to have waited 3 days to rant to her sons about the anchovies, and then concoct a plan to acquire them.
Walt, cream soda.
Right away, Mother. Larry, get your mother a cream soda.
Okay, where have I heard that voice before?
Gee, Bright, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Ah, yes. Voice actor Maurice LaMarche is well known for his impression of 20th century actor, director, and producer Orson Welles, whose voice he has done on Futurama.
We interrupt our program of the Jonas Brothers and their orchestra to bring you a special bulletin.
He used his Welles voice as the basis for the voice of Brain in Pinky and the Brain, and it seems to leak out in many of his other characters, including Mom's oldest son, Walt. That said, in the DVD commentary for this episode, writer Patrick Verone claims that LaMarche is doing Vincent Price.
You see, it takes tremendous concentration, years of physical and emotional training, and enormous mental exertion.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Of Mom's 3 sons, Walt is absolutely the brains of the operation, which isn't saying much, but it's more than I can say about middle child Larry, whose job seems to be having no personality whatsoever, despite being voiced by Dave Herman.
I'm a lot of people, but I'm not Fry. You ever kill a man with a sock? It ain't so hard.
And then there's Igner, the dim-witted youngest child and the only one with a shred of a conscience. Voiced by voice of Bender himself, John DiMaggio. Nothing was known about the boy's paternal parentage until the 3rd Futurama movie, Bender's Game, which confirms that Igner's father is Professor Hubert Farnsworth. We don't know who fathered Walt or Larry, whether they have the same father, or even that the professor isn't the father of one or both of them. Bender's Game hints that their father might be Ogden Wernstrom, whom Mom was previously married to, but it's left, perhaps intentionally, ambiguous. Also left unanswered is the question of whether or not Walt and Larry are twins. Although Walt is unquestionably the oldest, a flashback in Bender's Game shows Mom breastfeeding him and Larry at the same time, suggesting they might be twins. On the other hand, baby Walt seems to have more coordination and appears fully clothed, while Larry wears only a diaper. It's possible that Walt is months older.
But Mom said... You heard me.
Mom's slap is iconic throughout the series, so much so that it can actually be used as a unique identifier.
Slap not recognized.
Well, that's odd. Does this feel like my regular slap?
Yeah.
But here, in her debut appearance, it's actually Walt who slaps everybody around.
Quiet, you!
Shut your filthy clam!
Ow! We're here to tighten your drains. Ow! What's wrong, Mommy?
It's those damned anchovies. That dirtbag Fry must know their secret.
Okay, but how do you know the secret of these magical robot lubricating fish that went extinct hundreds of years before you were born?
One of the cornerstones of my empire is Mom's old-fashioned robot oil.
There must be a better way to package oil than a clunky old soup can. I mean, sure, it's supposed to be old-fashioned and all, but as anyone who's made tomato soup in a white shirt knows, taking a can opener to that thing is an environmental disaster waiting to happen.
10 billion robots, each one needing an oil change every 3,000 miles.
10 billion seems low, does it not? Not only is it a milestone that our human population should be hitting within the next few decades, Mom claims in the season 10 episode Leela and the Gene Stock that there are 40 billion hungry people on Earth who will pay top dollar for one of her piney porks. This could include alien immigrants as well as humans, and it's not clear if hungry people means everyone or a subset of people at a certain level of wealth, but it gives us a lower bound for Earth's population 13 years after A Fishful of Dollars. So if there are only 10 billion robots, people, human or alien, outnumber them by at least 4 to 1. Considering how many of the everyday machines that surround them are actually robots, we see this in the episode Mother's Day among others, it seems the reverse should be true.
You don't have to do the math to know that's a buttload of oil.
Normally I would want to, but I already have to calculate how much money fits in a car, so no.
A single drop of the anchovy's natural oil would lubricate 10 robots permanently.
Permanently? As in, it'll never degrade, leak, or accumulate debris that's harmful to a robot's machinery? And we eat these magical things on pizza?
If anyone ever got hold of anchovy DNA, they could chop out the oil-making gene, stick it in a bunch of third-world kids, and bam! Cheap, effective robot oil.
This is an oddly specific and very strange scenario. I mean, wouldn't it be simpler to just bring back the anchovy, Jurassic Park style? Splicing the genes into children seems way more complicated. While it fits that Mom would naturally assume her competitor is as evil as she is, there's still the question of costs and resources. An expense report for cross-species gene splicing is bound to raise more eyebrows than one for a big old fishy tank, right? I just realized that I'm overthinking what's happening in the accounting department of a robot oil empire that only exists in Mom's imagination because she's overthinking Fry's desire to acquire the anchovies. It might be time to admit I have a problem.
This Mr. Fry must be a mastermind of the highest order.
Esther, you ugly!
Fry is watching the classic 1970s sitcom Sanford and Son, which has a laugh track. So clearly this was not the punchline.
We have only one option. We'll have to bankrupt Mr. Fry, so he'll be forced to sell the anchovies to us.
Or, and just hear me out here, you could steal the anchovies? I mean, wouldn't that be way easier? They're about to kidnap Fry from his apartment. I mean, why not just poke around a bit first? Are they afraid of the asbestos?
But how are we supposed to get Fry's money out of the bank?
That part will be easy. Do you still remember your PIN number?
Sure. It's the price of a cheese pizza and a large soda back where I used to work. Panucci's Pizza.
Even if they get his PIN, what makes Mom think he keeps all that money in one account? If he's as intelligent as she assumes, he'd be prudently invested in a diverse range of financial products, not to mention the other antiques he bought at that auction. I love this episode. It's hilarious and cleverly written, but the premise of this third act is just bonkers. Once again, nothing but static.
Mr. Fry, it's those 3 plumbers you called for.
Did I mention Walt is the smart one? Previously, every time we've seen the door to Fry's 20th century apartment, the doorknob is on the left and the hinges on the right. For some reason, in this scene alone, it's reversed, and the light switch has also switched to the other side.
I didn't order any.
Quick, give him the tranquilizer.
This has got to be the least efficient way to tranquilize someone. They don't even have the pill out of the bottle when they tackle him.
Wake up, Mr. Fry.
Where am I?
You're in the good old year 2000, working here at Panucci's Pizza.
I realized this calendar was as hastily and shoddily constructed as the rest of the pizzeria, but I'm legally obligated to point out that January of 2000 started on a Saturday, not a Sunday. Of course, this points to a bigger question. How do they even know that Fry came to the future from the year 2000? Or more precisely, New Year's Eve of 1999. As far as we know, the only direct interaction Fry has had with Mom and her sons is in the auction scene, and nothing was said about it there. The surveillance footage from the bank does reveal that he opened his account over 1,000 years ago, that he hasn't accessed it in about 1,000 years, and that he used to work somewhere called Panucci's Pizza. But without already knowing the additional details of Fry's story, that's not much to go on. If this were Star Trek, I could believe that a quick computer search would turn up records of a Panucci's Pizza in New York at the end of the 20th century, and maybe even a news story about a delivery boy going missing in the vicinity of a cryogenics lab on New Year's Eve. However, this is not Star Trek. This is Futurama, where the year 2000 is as misunderstood and obscure as the year 1000 is to us. Even if Mom's sons were clever enough to piece together Fry's backstory, the evidence required to do so has long been lost to time, and there's nothing to suggest they've had time to spy on him or read his diary or something.
Hurry up, please. I want to get back to the head museum.
What do they give to these heads that makes them so content with living in a jar on a shelf? You'd think this trip out would be exciting for Baywatch / Home Improvement star / serious actress and future Oscar winner Pamela Anderson, but I guess it means being cut off from whatever natural or synthesized substance helps her brain cope with the horrific nature of her bodiless existence.
And if you need further proof that this is really 1,000 years ago, well, here's
a Richard Nixon poster from before you were born.
Wait, you're Pamela Anderson!
Sorry, I didn't recognize you. I've never seen you with this much clothing on before.
I'll have a cheese pizza and a large, line.
She forgot the word soda? What else would you order with a pizza? Salad? What kind of cretin are you?
Thanks a billion!
Am I supposed to believe they just rolled up to an ATM or a bank branch and punched in a 4-digit PIN and withdrew $4.3 billion in cash? No fingerprint, retinal scan, or colonic map required? And the aforementioned ATM or bank branch just happens to have this massive amount of cash on hand? Or do they drive around all day making withdrawals from different locations? Igner is driving, which is questionable in its own right, but here he's casually draping his arm over the back of the seat that Walt is sitting in. The exterior shot shows them pulling up in a rather large hover limo with Walt sitting far back from where the driver's seat should be. The money that's piled on top of the limo is nowhere to be seen in the first shot when it pulls up in front of Fry's apartment, but there's something even weirder here. On the front of the limo there are some letters that I'm pretty sure spell mom. But that's not what I saw the first time I paused this frame. What I saw was the word umami. No, not your mother, umami, which you may or may not recognize as one of the 5 basic tastes along with sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. It's that savory, meaty, brothy flavor in things like seaweed, shiitake mushrooms, soy sauce, shellfish, Parmesan cheese, many types of meat, asparagus, and anything with MSG added in. There's one particularly relevant food with a very strong umami flavor. Anchovies. Coincidence? Probably, but you gotta admit, this is pretty weird. Maybe not as weird as some things, but still weird. I was gonna do a whole thing on whether this limo could really be carrying $4.3 billion in cash, and even got as far as figuring out that you'd need 6 dump trucks to haul that amount of money in modern day $100 bills. Then I realized that there are just too many variables to answer that question with any kind of precision. We don't know the denomination of the bills, the dimensions of future money, or even if this is the full amount. They might have already dropped some off and gone back for more. I think a far more interesting question is why they bothered bringing Fry home after all the assaulting, kidnapping, and bank fraud. But even more puzzling is how not once during the assaulting, kidnapping, and bank fraud did they discover the giant tin of anchovies tucked into his sock.
Hey buddy, what year is this?
I'd question him asking this of an obviously year 3000 style robot, but he did buy that Walt was Mr. Panucci, so Fry's observational abilities are clearly as tenuous as his financial security acumen.
I felt terrible when I heard about your money troubles.
From my sons, who kidnapped and robbed you without masking their faces, and dropped you off in a Mom Corp limo.
The anchovies aren't for sale.
What? Listen, you little bastard. I control the robot oil business, and I won't let you ruin me.
At this point, Mom might as well be wearing a brain slug holding a neon picket sign with a full confession on it. Fry might be too dumb to figure it out, but Leela and Bender are sitting right there. And even if there's nothing they can do about what's happened, they should be cluing in about now that there's something very unusual and valuable about these anchovies.
These anchovies are going on a pizza.
You're going to eat them? Oh, well, just make sure you eat them all.
Mom believes him, despite thinking he's an evil genius.
Get ready for the most delicious extinct animal you've ever tasted.
I don't know. I've had cow.
We're left to wonder whether cows were already extinct when Amy tried beef, or if they went extinct sometime after. In the Season 7 episode That Darn Cats, we learned that Professor Fisher-Price Spiekenspell proved 50 years earlier that the cow says moo, implying that it's been less than 50 years since cows have gone extinct. Or maybe they just went into hiding and evolved super intelligence and later rose up to rule Earth, only to eventually be supplanted by...
I don't know. Is that a slug, maybe?
Look, it's Hermes. Why wasn't he at the staff meeting? I'm not sure if he did some background voices for the crowd reaction hubbub, but if IMDb is to be believed, Phil Lamar had exactly 2 lines in this episode. This,
Surprise!
and this.
Sorry!
Apparently, anchovies are so vile that even Bender, who has no sense of taste, gags when he eats them. Really, though? I mean, how bad could these things actually possibly be?